Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Um, I am doing this video lesson just to help you a little bit further with our lesson today, which is on mercantilism. I did go live with Google Meet, 10 o'clock today on Monday. Unfortunately, only one of you showed up, which is cool. Maybe there's a better time for us to do this. Maybe you prefer to work more one-on-one. That's absolutely fine. Either way, just leave a comment in this video when you're finished watching it and let me know what works best for you. Is there a later time maybe? Would you prefer not to do the full class thing and do more of a one-on-one time? That's fine too. We can work that out. Either way, really, guys, the best way for us to learn is live and in person. Obviously, that can't happen right now. So the next best thing is this virtual learning where I'm live in a video feed and available for you guys for whatever questions you have in real time as it happens. So really consider doing that. I think it'll really help you guys out. Okay, so end of spiel. Let's get into it. You'll be doing, you'll be exploring this concept of mercantilism, which was a very, very important concept um, that influenced the way European countries went about exploring and shows why they were motivated to explore in the first place. All right, so once you click on this Google Doc, you will see this that will come up. The expectations for today is that by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to explain to me what the heck mercantilism is, as well as how it affected the people of both Europe and the New World. Okay, you'll be doing this in a couple of ways. Part one is a writing prompt. There's three parts to this lesson. The first part is you're just going to preview what mercantilism is. You're going to click on the link here, and you'll see a video link. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long. It's not too long. And it just briefly explains what mercantilism is. What I'd like you to do is I want you to write down your choice, any three things that stood out to you in the video that you think would be really important to remember when talking about mercantilism, and then type it down here where it says type your response here. Part two is a reading, and there's questions that follow. The reading is relatively short, but I am happy to read it to you now while I have you. I highly suggest you follow along on your own document as I read. Okay, so mercantilism during the Age of Exploration. The European empires of the 16th through the 18th centuries were empires that existed primarily to increase trade and wealth of the European nations. During this time, powerful European nations such as Spain, Portugal, England, and France participated in intense economic and exploration-based rivalries. The Age of Exploration shows this rivalry in the massive colonies that each European nation possessed, as they competed with each other for territories in the New World. For example, see the maps below that show the height of the British and Spanish empires and their colonial possessions. So let's take a look at that map now. Okay. And you could see. So first of all, what do we get out of that paragraph? Well, there was huge competition between European nations during the Age of Exploration, specifically Spain, Portugal, England, and France. Those were the big powerhouses. There were other countries involved as well, but those are the four main ones. And the way they thought they could acquire wealth and power was by acquiring as much new land as possible. So you could see England, uh, they possessed lots of land in modern day North America, okay, especially where we live now, New England, the eastern coast, as well as Canada, okay, which is why, those countries speak English today. Huge parts of Africa as well, parts of Asia, especially India, okay, and even Australia. Now, as far as Spain goes, look at the amount of land they were able to acquire. And you may notice that a lot of these places are in South America, Central America, Mexico, and southwestern part of the United States. Um, as a result, here's one effect of the age of exploration. Most of these countries speak Spanish. But again, the really big concept here is that they they wanted to acquire as much land as they could, because the more land they could acquire, the more wealth they could acquire. We're going to get into how more land translates to more wealth in a moment. All right, so let's get back to the reading. So, at the foundation of these rivalries existed the economic system of mercantilism. So, we're going to see what mercantilism is right now. It says the theory behind mercantilism was a nation's power depended on its wealth. A nation could gain wealth in two ways. So, mercantilism, the idea is uh, my country can be the most powerful if I have the most wealth, which is why there was all this competition to acquire as much land as possible. It says a nation could gain wealth in two ways. First, it could find large deposits of gold and silver. And we know that there were some explorers that were motivated to find gold. All right, this whole idea of legend of the city of El Dorado, a city made of gold. Europeans really believed that this new world had lots and lots of gold. They were pretty much incorrect for the most part, but that brings us to the second part of how nations could gain wealth, and that would be obtaining gold and silver through a favorable balance of trade. Well, what does that mean? It says a nation has a favorable balance of trade when it sells or exports more manufactured goods than it buys or imports. A nation could then afford a powerful military to protect and further its economic interests. So, the second way, and this is really the heart of mercantilism, was having this favorable balance of trade. Basically, it's a very simple concept, right? You sell more stuff than you have to buy. And by doing that, you're going to have more money, right? Um, Colonies played an important role in mercantilism. In some cases, they provided the home country, the European country, with a source of gold and silver. In addition, colonies provided the home country with raw materials, and this is the really big part of it: basic materials used to make goods. Laws often required a colony's raw materials to be shipped to the home country. The raw materials would then be made into products by the same country in Europe and then be shipped back to the colony where they could be sold to the colonists. This process helped the home country to maintain a favorable balance of trade with other nations. Here's an example, and there's an image below this to kind of illustrate this. Say Spain sold $500 in sugar to France, and France sold $300 in cloth to Spain. France would have to pay Spain $200 worth of precious metals to pay for all the sugar. Spain would then have a favorable balance of trade because the value of its exports, the stuff it sold, like sugar, was greater than the value of its imports, the stuff it bought, like cloth. Spain would become richer because of the precious metals it received from France. The products made in the European nations would then be shipped back to the colony and sold. So here's image two. Spain, you could see, selling sugar for $500. Okay. France wants that sugar, but they only have $300 worth of cloth to sell to Spain. So they have to somehow make up that difference. And how do they do that? Well, they sell, they pay $200 more in gold and silver. Okay. So that's how that would work. My computer, of course, is freezing up. Hold on. Let's erase this. Maybe that'll help. Cool. Okay. And one other thing I want to just point out, I think might help. If you look at this map here, hopefully This won't freeze up. We will see. Stupid internet. Okay, well, oh, here we go. Cool. Okay, let's go to the map here. Okay, take a look at this map. You could see over here, you've got where all this gold is. This is Europe, right? The country in red is Spain. And what Spain wants to do is it wants to use Mexico, Central America, South America to acquire all sorts of raw materials. And of course, those are materials that can then be made into goods, right? A raw material might be cotton. You can then use that cotton to make clothing, right? And so the idea was they would take all this cotton really, really cheap uh, to acquire because these countries, European countries, now have taken over this land in the New World, and they have cheap labor, right, in the form of slaves uh, from Africa as well as slaves from the indigenous people living over in the New World. And they're going to send these raw materials over to Europe. Europe's going to then make stuff. They're going to then send the finished products back to the New World, and they're going to sell them to the people in the New World. And by doing this, the European countries are able to acquire lots of gold, lots of wealth. Okay, thanks for bearing with me on that. So, moving on. As the 18th century went along, some people began to reject the principles of mercantilism. For example, in 1776, Scottish economist Adam Smith published a written work called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, which is just often shortened to The Wealth of Nations. The book challenged the idea that the government should control the economy and instead proposed the idea of free trade and competition with a lesser role of government. The ideas of this book would eventually lay the foundation for the principles of capitalism, which is an economic system that supports the idea of free trade and choice as a way of achieving prosperity. So, different from mercantilism, capitalism is the idea that rather than the government controlling economic output, that it would be the person's individual's choice. And by doing that, this idea of capitalism, which is what America is really based and founded on, um, well, individuals could choose how they acquire wealth. This whole idea of free trade. All right, once we're done with your reading, which we just finished together, you're going to answer these 7 questions here. Type them in. Okay. And then finally, you are, sorry, my computer really sucks today. You are going to sum up what mercantilism is by using at least 3 images from the web. I don't care what those 3 images are. Maybe the image of gold might be a good image to use, right? The image of Spain, the country of Spain, whatever it is. Uh, find 3 images and then explain why you chose those 3 images. What do those 3 images have to do with mercantilism? Of course, you can always go on Google and find those and paste them in. Um, you can also, I don't know if you're aware of this, you can also search for images directly in Google Docs as well. I would love to show you that right now, but for some reason my computer is like really not working and freezing up. So um, if you have individual questions on how to do an image search in Google Doc, feel free to email me and I'll show you that stuff. Okay, I hope this video lesson really helped you guys out. Um, and if you do have any further questions, always feel free to email me or you can message me directly on Google Classroom as well. Okay. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks, everybody.